Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I think I have a few new faces in the audience, so I'll introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kara McLaughlin. I'm the director here at the House of the Seven Gables, but I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces as well. Tonight marks the first of our series of community conversations for 2018. It's also one of our earliest events for our 350th celebration of the House of the Seven Gables. Those of you that don't know, the House of the Seven Gables at the Turner Mansion was built in 1668. Has over 350 years worth of stories to talk about, so that's what we're celebrating this year. It was, as many people know, the inspiration for Nathaniel Hawthorne's novel. It's very famous for that. But what is most significant, at least for me and many other people, is the story of the house as a settlement house. It was founded as a nonprofit by a woman named Caroline Emerton in 1910. She opened the house as a museum specifically to preserve the house and to raise money to pay for social work in this neighborhood. Social work to help immigrants learn English and other job skills so that they could live a better life here in America. This dual mission of both preservation and helping immigrants is something we continue to do to this day. So this very evening, as a matter of fact, we have our adult ESL and citizenship classes going on. They don't happen here on site. They happen over at Salem Academy Charter School. We're very grateful for the partnership that we have with them. They enabled us to use their space. So I'm actually going to be leaving a little early. I apologize, so I can go over to those lessons. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to introduce to you our one of our newest staff members here. Her name is Elsabelle Rincon. She's right here. For those of you, I think most of you may remember Anna Nuncio. Anna, Elsabelle had some pretty big shoes to fill, but Anna retired at the end of last year. But we know that she's going to do a fabulous job. She brings some great experience and dedication with her. Having worked at several nonprofits here on the North Shore, including HAWK, the North Shore CDC. She also worked for a Rape Crisis Center up in Lowell. And she's currently finishing up her master's degree in education and community engagement. We are thrilled to have her on board, and she's going to be overseeing our settlement programs, including these community conversations, the adult ESL and citizenship classes, and our summer school program for English language learners, Caribbean Connections. So a hearty welcome to Elsabelle. I want to recognize a few people in the audience as well. We have one of our board members here, Patricia Bayho. Thank you for coming. We have Domingo Dominguez, one of our newest city councilors. We're so thrilled to have you here, Domingo. Patricia Zato is on our 350th story telecommunity and was helping out here tonight, as well as I think we'll be seeing Gus Husa pretty soon as well. I hope you all had a chance to view our photographer, Mark Chester's photographs outside. And I also want to thank both Mark and Diane Portnoy for being here tonight. Diane's from the Immigrant Learning Center. But to introduce both of them, I'm going to pass you over to Elsabelle. Thank you.
I'm going to use the mic. Can you hear me? How about now? It's warming up. There we go. Yeah. All right. Got it. Third try is a charm. So thank you all. It's great to see all of you here tonight and many familiar faces. I grew up in Salem, moved here at the age of 10 from the Dominican Republic, so I feel like I'm a Dominican Salemite. I'm thrilled to be here and be part of the Seven Gables team. But tonight we have two great speakers here. As Kara mentioned, we have Diane Portnoy, who's the founder and CEO. How's this? All right. That better. Who's the founder and CEO of the Immigrant Learning Center in Malden, which recently celebrated its 25th anniversary. The Immigrant Learning Center of Malden is a not-for-profit organization that gives immigrants a voice in 3 ways: The English language program provides free year-round English classes to immigrant and refugee adults in Greater Boston to help them become successful workers, parents, and community members. The Public Education Institute informs Americans about the economic and social contributions of immigrants in our society. And we actually had Denzel Mohammed come and talk about that very topic as part of our community conversations about 2 years ago, I think, right? And also the Institute for Immigration Research, which is a joint venture with George Mason University and conducts research on the economic contributions of immigrants. And we also have Mark Chester, who is the former director of photography and staff photographer of ASCAP in New York City. His works is in the permanent collections of museums and galleries nationwide. His two sons touring exhibit, an award-winning companion book, represent images culled from his 40 years of traveling with a camera, presented in pairings related by subject matter, graphic interest, or as the photographer puts it, a stretch of the imagination. A wide-reaching body of work that connects architectural icons with sidewalk signage, Japan with Iowa, 1979 with 2002, celebrity with passerby in a manner that reveals, as novelist Paul Thoreau describes, tremendous humanity and humor. In this juxtaposition of matching moods and paraphernalia, Mark Chester shows us in an ingenious way how the world is related and how we matter to each other. So tonight's view, The Bay State, a multicultural landscape supporting Mira, is a collection of informal environmental portraits documenting ethnic diversity in Massachusetts. 400 plus photographs that represent over 190 countries are touring the state. A companion book for donation to schools and libraries will bring awareness to our cultural diversity. Prompted by the 2010 census, the seed that was planted earlier on assignment at Ellis Island for a 1978 essay by role model Charles Kuralt for his book Dateline America. So we are very thrilled. I'm very thrilled and excited to hear from both of you tonight. Welcome and thank you. Diane will present first.
Okay, I'm told I speak softly, so can everybody hear me? Yes?
Yes.
We're good? Okay. Thank you, Elsabelle. And good evening, everybody. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening to celebrate our multicultural landscape. And thank you very much to the House of Seven Gables for inviting me to be a part of this. Now, Mark is going to share with you some of the images he's captured to illustrate the beauty of the multicultural citizens of Massachusetts. I have the great privilege of being surrounded by this cultural diversity on a daily basis at the Immigrant Learning Center. Now, for 25 years, I have been inspired by immigrants and refugees from 118 countries who sacrificed so much to become our neighbors. Now, they become not only our neighbors, but our healthcare providers, our teachers, our customers, our restaurateurs, business owners. They care for our children and much more. They weave themselves into the economic and social fabric of our communities, and they become we. Now, before they can do any of that, they have to learn English. And that's why I started the Immigrant Learning Center. And it was a need I really understood well because I saw it firsthand in my own family. Now, my parents were Polish Jews who had survived the Holocaust, but had lost their entire families. I was born a year after World War II ended. And when I was a couple of months old, we had to escape the Russians. And we ended up in the American zone in Germany. When I was 3 years old, we immigrated to the United States as refugees under the Displaced Persons Act. And we came on an American converted battleship, you know, men on one side of the boat, women and children on the other. And we came to Ellis Island. Now, when we landed, I was so sick, I was not permitted into the country. And of course, my parents were afraid they'd have to go back to Poland. But I was a very cute little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. And so they let me in, and they put my mother and me in that very infamous Ellis Island Hospital, where we spent 10 days there. Obviously, I got better. And when we were released, we were settled in the city of Malden, where I grew up and actually graduated from Malden High School. I sometimes think about that. My parents arrived with absolutely nothing. No family, no friends, no money, no savings, absolutely no knowledge of the English language, and no idea how to survive in this new country. And just like so many others, my parents found a way. They got jobs, they raised children, started a business, and somewhere along the way they learned English and became citizens and always voted. You know, I still remember the day they became citizens. I was 8.5 years old, and I went with them to Boston to the swearing-in ceremony. I cannot tell you how excited they were. And 6 months later, we went back to Boston, and I got my citizenship papers, which I still have. There's a picture with me with long braids. Yeah. But it's a story I hear repeated over and over again in a wide variety of accents from my students. And that's what makes this country so special. We attract people from all over the world, and they in turn make our community stronger. Just like my parents, many of them start businesses. And to highlight the entrepreneurial spirit of immigrants, the Immigrant Learning Center holds an annual Immigrant Entrepreneur Awards dinner. In fact, we're accepting nominations for this year's awards right now. One of our first award winners was a woman who came to Salem from the Dominican Republic as a child. She graduated with honors from Salem High School and went on to become a very successful businesswoman and an asset to her community. Because she was smart and warm and eager to help, people would come to her for things like help with translations and tax forms. She turned this desire and ability to help her community into a business, Silverio Insurance in Lawrence, and into public service. She served on the Lawrence City Council and in 2009 ran for mayor of Lawrence. Now, she didn't win that election, but she continues to win the gratitude of those she helps. Now, that's just one story in the Commonwealth and a nation full of stories. Do you realize that 40% of the Fortune 500 companies, such as Google, Levi's, and YouTube, were started by immigrants or children of immigrants? 40% of our Nobel Prize winners are immigrants. Although immigrants are 13% of the population, they're 25% of our doctors and surgeons, 22% of our home health care rates, 40% of our medical scientists, and over half of our biotech workers. Now, when you look at the images in the exhibition, I'd like you to think about the journey each person had to take to get here. I guarantee you it wasn't as simple most of the time as hopping on a plane. And I'd like to leave you with a short video about the students at the Immigrant Learning Center that can give you a better sense of this, much better sense than my words ever could. So thank you for coming, thank you for your time and attention. And I'm sure we'll talk more.
Today, the great immigration debate is on. Some stand up to welcome immigrants to America. Others say they pose a danger. And that is why there is an urgency now to give immigrants the voice they need so that they can show Americans that their story is our story. Imagine one day leaving all that you know and love behind and taking off to a land that is completely foreign.
Hard moments, actually. Like, it's more emotional moments, like when you say bye to your family.
Immigrants who make that decision come to America for many different reasons.
The freedom is worth the freedom.
It's hard to live in my country. It's very dangerous, you know.
There's something inside me, want more out of life.
But they all bring one thing that is the same, a remarkable determination to make a new and better life.
That risk-taking, that determination, that's what sets them apart. These people are different.
For most immigrants, arriving in America is the fulfillment of a long-standing dream. But it can instantly become a nightmare.
Came to the Boston, Logan International Boston. I wasn't expecting someone to show up and meet me. He didn't show up, he didn't call. I don't have no destination. I don't have no friend waiting for me. I have no house to rest. And the worst of the thing, I don't speak English.
Suddenly, nothing is more important than learning English.
It's the first step. The dream won't happen without this.
I was working with my coworkers in Family Dollar, and he told me that there is a school in Malden called Learning Immigration Center.
It's a school that offers immigrants immersion instruction in English. And best of all, it is free.
In, out, up, down.
Step inside any classroom, and what you see is an inspiring work ethic. No group of people is more motivated to succeed.
I know one day I want to be somebody. I want to finish my diploma, then I want to have a better job. Then that's my goal. I dream every single day.
The students here come from 118 countries.
The ILC is a lesson on immigrant integration for the students who come here. They are surrounded by people of all different cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds, and they learn to not just tolerate each other, but embrace each other and love each other.
And as performers in the theater class show, their stories are all familiar.
Where are you from?
From.
Are you from Haiti?
Haiti, yes.
Everyone here has a story like that. But as students' English improves, their lives are entirely changed.
People ask you something at the street and you, oh my God, people talk to me. And now I'm so proud of me because I can talk to people.
When I speak with my kids' teachers, I have a good conversation with them. I can understand what they say. I can understand what my kids need.
Boston. So I'm alone. What happened next?
As English speakers, ILC students have a new voice. But they also have a chance here to amplify that voice.
So we have checks and balances so that one branch of the government does not.
These students are studying to become American
Whether it's
citizens.
Hillary Clinton or Donald
I
Trump.
want to become American citizen because I want to vote. I want to understand history America and the lost America.
And for those who pass the test, there is a big day. Every year, the ILC hosts a ceremony where new Americans take the oath of allegiance.
That I will support and defend the Constitution and laws.
And I get a certificate for the citizenship. Yeah, so happy. Yeah, I never forget. Yes.
I always thank them for coming to America because of the contributions I know they're going to make. They're going to make a difference.
And chances are that difference will begin with something like this. Lily's Nail Salon, owned and operated by former ILC student Fong Wen, who is taking a chance with his own small business.
And I'm like, well, let's play the game to see who's winner. And so far, I am.
That little nail salon is truly a symbol of what immigrants bring to this country. It's a symbol of the communities that they slowly help to revitalize. And it's a symbol of their desire to succeed.
And it is that desire to succeed and willingness to take a risk that immigrants bring with them that makes them invaluable to America. All they really need is a launch pad, a place to find their voice. Because when they succeed, we all do.
I changed my life. Come here. Thank you.
Video first, or? Yeah, video. Sure. So we have another, before we introduce Mark officially, to come up and share remarks about the exhibit that some of you may have seen on the way in, or some of you may be seeing on the way out. We have a short video about Mark's project as well, so we'll get that queued up.
I'm a son of a gun. Actually, I'm the son of an immigrant. My father was born in Russia. But I inherited his rooting for the person who spoke with an accent, for the underdog. Hi, I'm Mark Chester, photographer, and I'm making portraits of residents in the Bay State to celebrate cultural diversity. So far, there are 400 people in the book. They are foreign-born men, women, married couples, and families from 185 countries and territories. Massachusetts is a mini United Nations. The participants are from all walks of life. They live in all four corners of the Commonwealth. They are professionals, artists, musicians, entrepreneurs, and working people. They are new American citizens from Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and the South Pacific Islands. They enrich our lives every day. I met people at their naturalization ceremonies in Boston, Worcester, Springfield, Fitchburg, and Cape Cod. I met them at universities, hospitals, through consulates and embassies, and community organizations. People introduced me to their friends from other countries. I met people working in hotels, restaurants, at the airport, train station, the bus depot, even in taxis. This is their project just as it is mine. They have chosen their own photograph of themselves that they want included in the book and exhibitions. A selection of photographs is on display through 2017 and beyond for public viewing at municipal buildings, museums, art centers, schools and colleges, and libraries throughout the state. The exhibitions will bring awareness to our cultural diversity and bring immigration into focus. The production of 3,500 books will be donated to the portrait subjects themselves, to schools and libraries in support of the mission of MIRA. Thank you for your attention. I hope you will contribute. Good evening. Thank you so much, Julie, and everyone for coming here. Without Julie, I would not be here. I've never been to the House of Seven Gables, and I had a tour today, and it was just incredible.
Would you use the microphone, please?
Can you hear me now? No? Can you?
You can take it out and use it closer to your mouth. I think.
It's hard. Is that good?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay, I'll stand close to this. So, thank you for coming. This was a short video that we had put together for the purpose of really introducing this project and to hopefully raise funds so that we can publish this book to give to schools and to libraries and to the participants themselves. So there are probably about 450 people in the book, and the countries have grown to about 190. The latest person that I met was from North Korea, and her photograph is on exhibit here. So that was the most exciting. But why don't we? Oh, it's there. So this is the book, and why don't we go on to the next? We'll go through this. Some of these you've seen in the video, but why don't we go on again because I want to. Why don't we go to the next picture? All right, this is Ellis Island. I started photographing in 2011, right after the 2010 census was taken, and that gave me the idea. Every 10 years, a census is taken, and the stats showed that there were over 100 nationalities living in Massachusetts, and I thought, my goodness, where are the other 86 countries? So I went through the research, and the quest was to find as many people from different countries that were residents. So the caveat of all the people are that they're foreign born, they're residents of Massachusetts, and they have become naturalized citizens. So that was the category. And I went out to try to meet people, and I'll get to how I met people. But it was really, the seed that was planted for this project was when I was assigned to photograph Charles Kuralt's essays. He had 100 essays. Charles Kuralt was a broadcast journalist from the 60s, and he was my role model, and I thought what he did was just fantastic, and I wanted to do what he did. But maybe, I don't know, the bus was that comfortable, but anyway. But he was just terrific. And I had the good fortune of being assigned to photograph his essays, and one of the essays was Ellis Island. And I'm going to read that essay, if I may. It won't take very long, because it was very moving, and it really planted the seed for this project almost 20 years later or more. This is what he said. He wrote, "My father's folks came from Austria. Where did your father's folks come from? From somewhere else, not here. Even if you're full-blooded Cherokee, it's commonly accepted that your folks immigrated to America from somewhere else, on foot across the land bridge from Asia, maybe. And the rest of us got here in steerage from Liverpool, or in tourist class from San Juan, or in chains from the Ivory Coast. They have opened Ellis Island to tourists, which means that the place where 16 million strangers in fur hats and bushkas came knocking at the golden door may now be visited by their grandchildren wearing flowered shirts with cameras around their necks. It's an occasion for remembering that we all came from somewhere else. We tend to forget, "Give me your tired, your poor," were empty words to the Chinese and Japanese who were the first to be excluded, starting before the turn of the century. Then the Mexicans were shut out. Starting in 1917, you had to be able to read. Starting in 1920, quotas were set up for practically everybody. In 1924, the National Origins Act cut Italian immigration from the millions of the early years of the century to fewer than 4,000 a year. John F. Kennedy said that we should change that poem to read, "Give me your tired, your poor, as long as they came from Northern Europe, are not retired or too poor, never stole a loaf of bread, and never joined any questionable organization." It took us a long time, half a century and more, finally to change the law and polish the tarnish from the golden door. That's because we forgot where we came from, somewhere else, not here. And we forgot who did the work of building America. Irish who came here expecting to be farmers ended up digging the Erie Canal. Italians who dreamed of starting orchards rooted out the New York subway system instead. Germans and Poles and Swedes and Chinese laid 350,000 miles of railroad track. Whole villages of Welsh came over to dig up Pennsylvania and fuel the insatiable engine of America. There are always more streets to pave, more water mains to build, and more waves of strong backs on the way across the oceans. New York, which had 1 million people in 1875, had 3.5 million in 1900, half of them foreign-born. They lived in tenements that quite exceeded in hopelessness anything we call poverty today. But hopelessness isn't quite the right word. Maybe hope is the one thing they did have, if not for themselves, then for their children. We are their children, and since we can't remember the flies, the crowding, the sickness, and the dirt, we ought at least to remember that the people from somewhere else made this country for us. So, this is the boat that goes to Ellis Island. This was taken in 1978, and I saw this woman, and it just struck me that she probably, excuse me. I'm surprised. All right. It just told the story. So this was one of the published photos in the book. So I said in the introduction that my father was born in Russia. And this is a surprise to me. Bear with me. Say something funny, somebody. All right. So I lived with my father and his grandparents for a while, and they spoke Yiddish all the time. Oh, thank you, yeah. And of course, I didn't really understand, nor did I understand him when he spoke English. But anyway.
I understood Yiddish, Mark. Is that funny?
You did?
I understood Yiddish.
Was that your first language?
No, German was my
German was your first language.
But my parents spoke Yiddish, so, and they thought I wasn't understanding what they said. I understood everything.
That's funny. So let's go to the next. So anyway, well, let me just say that. So that really planted the seed, and it got me ready for this project. So I've been going to naturalization ceremonies for the last 5 years. This was at BC, as a matter of fact. And there I met the director of the USCIS, United States Citizenship Immigration Service Director. And I didn't know who he was, but he asked if I could take a picture of all of his agents, and there must have been 50 agents that were working that day at the ceremony. And then he introduced himself, and so we've been friends for a long time since he's been here. Dennis Reardon, do you know Dennis? Anyway, so I see him occasionally at ceremonies, and we were at the Heinz Auditorium. Heinz Auditorium has maybe 5,000 people that are going through, 3,000 applicants. I get the list of the countries of the applicants, but I don't know who they are. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. And I kind of go through the countries and kind of check off the list of the countries that I don't have. And in this particular one at Heinz was someone from Oman, which is in the Saudi Peninsula. So you have Kuwait, you have the Emirates, you have, well, you can look on that. And I said to Dennis, listen, there's somebody from Oman, and I've walked all around and I've tried to connect with him. What I would do, I would walk around the aisles, saying, anyone from Oman? Oman, anyone? Anyone from Oman? And nobody answered. Well, I mean, it's, you have to be sensitive. This is a moving time in someone's life to become a citizen. So, you have to just be sensitive about it. And I was as sensitive as I could be, but still I could not find anyone from Oman. And I said, Dennis, there's someone from Oman. Is there any way that you can suggest helping me? And he said, yeah. He got up to the microphone and he said, would the person from Oman please come up to the microphone? And all the way in the back, because I did not go to the back, this gentleman came up, and then Dennis introduced me to him. And I told him what the project was. I have an elevator speech. I'm photographing foreign-born Massachusetts residents, and would you like to be part of this project? Because I'm trying to photograph a man and a woman from each country, and families. And you can choose the photograph that you like after our session, and you will get a book. So I see somebody here. This is Alexander Fitzroy Alexander, who's in the book, and his photograph is outside. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And actually, I met Fitzroy through ILC when he became.
Immigrant Learning Center.
He was Entrepreneur of the Year in 2000. Yeah, and you're from Grenada. I've been to Grenada. I was there a long time ago.
It's beautiful.
What's that?
I said me too. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful. So I told you what I was doing, and you said yes. And I went to a traditional bakery. Breads, traditional breads, where he has a bakery. And I didn't know where I was going to take the photograph. And he has a logo that is just a striking logo. I love that logo. And that was the photograph. Anyway, so let's go on to, this is a mural in East Boston. And I photographed a man from Costa Rica in front of this mural. He's in the book. This is the book. I'm going to leave this at the back. You can look through it. Okay? That's this couple. He's from Morocco. She's from Kazakhstan. I met them at the Quincy Library when I was photographing a man from Mauritius. And there was an English. There was a party for all the immigrants learning English, and he and his wife were there. And that is the mural in the Quincy Library. And they have not become citizens as yet, but there's a special place in the book, future U.S. citizens. So I wanted to show them. That's Faneuil Hall. That was the first ceremony that I went to. Okay. Oh, this, okay, the next. This is a judge, Raya Zobel, who gave the address. That was the address that she gave to the applicants. And after, right there, it's actually out. There's a text panel outside. So after she gave the address, and this is a court of law, so everyone has to stand up when she leaves the platform, and she shook hands with everybody as she walked out. It was just very, very tender, and I told her I was so impressed with that, and would she allow her address to the applicants be in the book? And so her clerk allowed it, and so that's the address of her. So that was 213. This is an old photo from my files, and I think, and these are, yeah, that's all right. So flashcards, vocabulary flashcards that the applicants can get for learning English. This is JFK Library Museum in Dorchester. That's part of the ceremony. This is a fellow from Senegal who I waited till celebrate citizenship, celebrate America, so the timing of it. This was a lady from El Salvador that I asked. And these two gentlemen were there also. They don't know each other. They're from a different clan, as you can tell by their tartan. Oh, well, you can't really see it. And rather than photograph just one, I asked if I could photograph both of them, so I had to hustle to get the other guy. I mean, this is, and we staged it right there, and that is a background. And this is at the Sturbridge Village. Every July 4th is a ceremony at Sturbridge Village. That's a gentleman from, that was at Sturbridge Village also. That's Faneuil Hall. They're from Sturbridge Village, and he was from Kazakhstan, and those are his parents. His sister is a citizen, but his parents were not. That's Mokley. That's the U.S. district. So sometimes I would just photograph on site where I met them. Other times we would make appointments and we would exchange contact information and set up a convenient time that was appropriate for each person. That's Seaport Trade Center, and I was walking around there looking for somebody from Suriname in that crowd. And I met Ivan from Suriname. I walked around, and I mean, I don't know how many circles I went around these 4,000 people, because it's a captive audience, but you know, people aren't in tune, they don't hear, they're not listening, they're just in their own inner thoughts. And I said, Suriname, you know, I'm like a train conductor, Suriname, next stop, Suriname. And a woman raised her hand, and it was his wife. And she said, well, my husband is getting his citizenship. Let me introduce you. And fortunately, he was on the aisle, and I gave him my elevator speech. And he said, great. And he happened to live on Cape Cod, where I live. So that's his studio. He's a director of the media. This was next picture. So this JFK Museum in Hyannis had their first ceremony, and I was looking for somebody from Ecuador, and he was with a helper, and she helped me talk to him, and I posed that photograph. This was Faneuil Hall, and I just liked this was Lowell Auditorium, and I was looking for someone from Saudi Arabia, and the agents had been very helpful. All the agents who check in everybody, and they've been very helpful to lead me to people. And of course, they don't know the names, but she said, there's somebody from Saudi Arabia, and she has a purple bag. And there's 600 people in the Lowell Auditorium. Marty Walsh, the next. So his mother was born in Ireland. Mayor Walsh was born here. And this family, this is their future citizens, but most of them have actually become citizens. But the Jewish Family Services in Springfield had told me about a group from Bhutan. And they were, they call themselves a Bhutanese Nepali because they're of Nepali heritage, living in southern Bhutan, but they were asked to leave the country, and so they lived in refugee camps in Nepal. So I met this family, and I think they're all citizens now. But this was in 2013 was when I met them, and as it turned out, they live in a neighborhood that I was familiar with in Springfield, Massachusetts. I went to high school in Springfield, Massachusetts. This is a lady from Bhutan, and you can tell she's more Tibetan looking than the Nepali, the Bhutanese Nepali people. Forgot the story about her, but she was very happy to pose.
Did anybody ever refuse you?
Yes, but they're not in the book. So Aruba is a Dutch colony. It's independent now. And it turned out that somebody I knew in Woods Hole, where I live, said that, well, my husband's from Aruba. So I said, great, well, would he like to be part of it? And he says, sure. So, and he had an Aruba license plate. So I try to put together a photo that says something about the person or about the country from where they're from. That's a replica of the Mayflower. She lives in Plymouth. I was in Watertown and I saw this school, and I called this gentleman and told him what the project was, and he said, sure, come. He was just terrific, and he's a dance instructor, and these are two of his students. So he's Armenian, born in Syria, and they're Armenian, born in Armenia. The new Armenia, the one that was part of the Russian. And he was also in that program. And he said, meet me at the Watertown Mall. And I get there about an hour earlier just to kind of scout it out to where a good picture would be. And I don't know, that just hit me. Those are those massage chairs.
Yes.
And this lady, I think I met her at a Mira event. Jeff Grossa was with Mira, and he was very helpful. It was an event, I think it was at the State House, an annual event. I forgot what it was exactly.
Oh, the Christmas, no, sorry, the Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving.
No, it was something else. It was in the.
Oh, the Immigrant Day at the State House, the lobby day, when everybody gets to talk to their representatives.
Yes.
Huge, big.
Yes. And this lady from Iran was there, and I think it was somebody who introduced me to her. I forgot who it was. From Mira. Mira is the fiscal sponsor of this project, meaning that they support it, they endorse it, but they don't do any fundraising for it, which is fine. And Mira is it's the largest. How would you describe Mira?
State coalition.
It's a massive. I'm sorry.
Coalition. It's a statewide coalition.
Statewide coalition. It's the Massachusetts Immigrant Refugee Advocacy Coalition, and it oversees about 130 different organizations, community organizations that advocate for citizenship rights. Uzbekistan, I forgot, I had photographed a woman from Uzbekistan, but I was looking for a male and,
I'm sorry, too quick.
okay. So I met them at their home, at her home. This is brother and sister. And they put out, and those ceramic plates are Uzbekistani, I suppose, and so is the tablecloth. So we took that. Next was the Benin. This was the Berkshire Community Organization, and I was introduced by somebody there, and she gave me the name of this family from Benin. So, yes, next. They're from Indonesia, and I think I had put out in the newsletter, I contacted the Islamic community, I forgot the name of it exactly, but they put a call for participants in their newsletter, and these people responded.
Which mosque? Which one?
It's in Boston. It's the big.
Oh, the ISBCC.
Yeah.
Islamic Side of Boston Community Center.
So they put that in a newsletter, and that was another way. The other, and Sri Lanka, okay, referred to by a person from Lithuania on the Cape, and this was referred by a professor at Boston College. She's from Zambia. Oh, wait, let me go back to that because she has, I don't know if you can see the painting, but it says Green Card Blues. So before you become a citizen, you have a green card. And so she had gone through that, and now she's a citizen.
Which is not green, by the way.
What's that?
It's not green.
No, it's not green, no. I don't know, why do they call it green? Do you know?
It was originally when they started the program back in the 1900, 1915, whenever, it used to be an actual green card.
Like a dollar bill green, you mean, that kind of
Well,
green?
light green, kind of light green color. You know, like small square like this, paper. It's like the Social Security card, but it was all green with writing on it, printing on it. And that lasted for like couple of years. Then they started doing the more ones with the security and the advanced and everything. And first thing they did, they changed the color.
This was a family from Peru, and my friend who taught speech pathology at a high school referred me, and I went to their house. This is a gentleman from Oman. He's a doctor. He's a emergency medical doctor. And so after I told him the project, he was relieved because he said, I didn't know what I did. He was a little nervous. He was a little nervous. And so I went to his house. And,
Did you face that a lot with people being nervous about the project at first?
Well, at first, but then I show them a letter, or I show them information, what I'm doing. I had a dummy of the book, maybe.
You don't think he was nervous because someone called his name?
Well, he was nervous then, yes, because to be called out with 5,000 people, and he was coming to the microphone.
You think they're gonna take it away from you or something? I was there.
Right.
Yeah, it's possible. A couple from Chad, they were referred by another fellow from Chad who was not a citizen as yet. How are we doing for time?
We're good. We've only 5-10 minutes
Okay.
or so.
This family from Albania, she works with an organization in Worcester, and she invited me over to take their photograph. That's her husband and then her parents. And she was referred to me by the New England Conservatory. I met him at a ceremony, and I had gone over there one time, and he had forgotten to tell his wife, and she had just come home from work, and she said, well, this is not a good time, dear. And so I said, well, how about after church? And so I sent when they were dressed up, and she felt good. So I like that picture very much. Dennis has raises chickens, so I set up that. I met this mother and daughter at their ceremony, and I was looking for someone from Guinea. So Argentina. You know, I'm trying to free associate. How do you find somebody from a certain country? What do you associate with Argentina? But the tango. So I called a tango school. And the teacher told me, well, I'm not from Argentina, but let me think about it. And so she got back to me and suggested I meet this doctor. So I went to the hospital. This was at the vet hospital. The story there. It's a happy story anyway. All right. I can't remember. Jamaica, this gentleman has a cafe in Yarmouth and was referred to me. And I just went in there and told him what I was doing, and he said, sure. And then I just waited until he was serving something. And this gentleman from Greece was at his, in a window in Cambridge Square. Felix's is the name of the shoe. Do you know it?
Yeah,
I know the place.
Yeah, what's the name? Are they still there?
He might still be there. So he was just in his window, just doing his thing by sewing, and he just looked so happy, and I just had a feeling that he might be foreign born. But you don't know. I mean, you just don't know. What's that?
Every toddler is foreign born.
Yeah, right. So I went in and I asked a question to hear his accent, and he had an accent. And we got to talking, and I just said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Greece." And I give him the elevator speech again. I'm going into a lot of elevators, I'll tell you. And I told him the project. He said, "Sure," and he just sat down. It was like that. So that's great, and he loves that picture. And I went back and I gave him a picture. So I send the photographs to everyone through email. If they don't have email, then I make a print and I just send it, and they can choose the photograph, or their wife chooses the photograph.
That's a wise choice.
Again, this is interesting how there's another cobbler, and he's from Palestine, and he has a shop in Falmouth. And I went into the shop. I was told that this gentleman is from Palestine, and I went into, and his son told me, well, where to go, and he's in Hyannis. And this gentleman, I was just walking by the Taj and started talking, Abraham, and he said he was from Syria, and that was that. She shaves my beard. In Falmouth. Samoa. So Samoa's pretty remote. And I had an exhibition at Cape Cod Community College. And some people came up and they said, well, are you looking for any country? I said, well, I'm looking for Samoa. And he says, well, why don't you contact the Mystic River Rugby Club? I said, okay. I did. I couldn't get through to anybody, the rugby club, and then I went online. I got the names of the people, and I called the public relations person for the Mystic River Rugby Club, and he told me that there was a game in Newport, and that there was somebody from Samoa, and it's the last game of the season because they rarely play in New England. And I went there, and the fellow from Samoa was not a citizen. And the coach said, but there's a fellow from South America who lives in Cambridge, and he speaks Samoan because his girlfriend is from Samoa. Convoluted stories. Anyway, so he gave me the name of this fellow who's an architect in Cambridge. And his daughter was born Dubai. So that's how that came about. Brunei is an independent country on the island of Borneo. And it was the fellow you just saw from Samoa who gave me the fellow's name from Brunei because they went to high school together in Samoa. So this is the story, how we meet. It's a small world. So I think that's it. And then the rabbi I went to, he was the rabbi of Hillel, and I knew that he was born in the Netherlands, and I asked him, do you know Rabbi? So he's retired now, and he posed for this picture and gave me the names of some other people. The Russian lady who is next, I'll just tell you one story. So she's from Russia, and I went up to her office, and so the caption, as you see, so it's the country of birth, the name, the year of citizenship, and the year of birth, and city of residence. So that's the caption information, just to give a spectrum of the people. And she said, so I said, and what year were you born? I said, I'm not going to give you that information. I said, okay. How old were you when you came over here? She said, I'm not going to tell you that either. So anyway, so we don't have a date of birth, but she's probably 25, right? Anyway, she was very funny. That's
25 going on 25.
Yeah. So is that it?
That is. I think we'll open it up for Elzabel may have a few questions to
Okay.
get the conversation going. But thank you so much to you both for your for sharing your projects with us. And I'll turn it over to Elzabel.
Thank you. I'll actually turn it to the audience first, see if anybody has any reactions, questions, or comments. And I already see a hand. Please.
I enjoyed both of the presentations. And Mark, I wanted to ask you a few questions from the standpoint of photography, if you don't mind. I'd be curious to know, how many times did your subjects choose a photograph that you wouldn't have chosen, for one thing, or were you a happy family with that? And they're so wonderfully composed. The backgrounds, of course, often add another dimension to it. How much of those choices were yours, and how much were your subjects? How did you balance that?
Well, I would shoot maybe. I only had maybe 15 minutes with the subjects, and or longer. It really depended on their schedule, and I would just shoot, and then I would do a first edit, and maybe send 10 images that I liked. So it was really a question of whatever they wanted. And I mean, I stressed in the video that it's their project too. I mean, without the participation of these new Americans, this would not be a book. And the book is something that we're trying to raise funds to give to them and to the schools and to the libraries to celebrate the cultural diversity of Massachusetts.
So your heart wasn't broken by the choices that weren't made?
No, I mean, it was fine. I didn't really.
Okay. Just do one more about your processing. Do you want to drop in the work?
Well, I got a digital camera for this project. I used to shoot with film, and the film was just too. There wasn't as much latitude shooting with film because there were low light situations. So the digital, I splurged and got a digital camera, and I haven't looked back.
What was the woman's story from North Korea?
So North Korea was one of those situations where I was in Heinz Auditorium again, with 5,000 people, and I had the list and said North Korea, and I just couldn't believe it because I'd never seen on a list North Korea, and I got there early, and I mean this is maybe a 3-hour situation, and I'm standing there trying to channel a person from North Korea because I don't know if it's a male or a female. I just know it's North Korea.
Mark, do you know how she got here?
No, I don't know that story, but not yet. So a fellow from Taiwan was sitting down and he saw the camera on my neck and we started talking about photography and blah, blah, blah. And I told him why I was there, and I said, I'm looking for somebody from North Korea. And he said, well, why don't you write a sign in calligraphy? He whips out his iPhone, looks up North Korea in Korean, and he said, there it is. So I said, well, would you mind writing it down? Because he speaks Mandarin and characters, and he was more deft at writing characters. And so I went out to get a felt tip pen, and brought it back, and he wrote it, and then I went out to return the pen to the agents in the front. And as I'm coming back into Heinz Auditorium, I see two Asian women talking. They're standing up and they haven't sat down yet. And I flashed the sign. And that was the woman. And she was with a friend, Korean American, and she translated everything. And so she gave me her contact information. And until maybe 3 months later, we made the connection, and I photographed, and her photograph is out there. So I don't know the story yet, but she speaks Mandarin. So I suspect that somehow she went to China from Korea. And she changed her name to, I don't even know what her first name was, but her name is Charlene Lee. So, did I answer that question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Were any of the people admitting to have come here illegally?
No. No, I mean, I didn't even pry. I mean, if they were a citizen, that's all that mattered for this project, and no, there wasn't, not that I know of.
This is for Diane.
Yes.
Diane, those wonderful statistics that you have about the success of immigrants, how is your organization getting that kind of information out?
Well, it's through research.
Yeah.
Through very proper research. And we also are, through the Institute of Immigration Research at George Mason University as well. And we have a relationship with them. And they do national research as well.
But the question was not where do you get it, but how do you have ways of getting that out?
We have it we have our Public Education Institute.
Okay.
So we try very hard to get accurate data out there.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
I happen to work with Diane. One of the things that we do is we have webinars a few times a year. And actually, on Thursday, we're having a webinar about making the economic case for immigrants. So if you're interested in that, it's on our website.
And it's not only making the case, but it's using the correct language. It's the stories you tell and what words you use when you make the case. You'd be surprised, how important it is to use positive language and not to repeat the negative, because people tend to remember the negative. So we actually do webinars on how you tell the stories, how you get the word out in the proper way. Yeah.
This is a question for Mark and Diane. Mark, you have stated that your purpose was to demonstrate or bring awareness regarding the multicultural diversity of the state. However, I see so many messages that are inherent in the images that you portray. So are there any other messages that you want to convey, and any other messages, Diane, that you would use these photographs to convey?
Well, the fact that they accepted to be part of this project says something to me that they are happy to be here and that they are not resident about showing who they are and to pose in front of the camera. You might want to ask.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump in on this one? I started the Public Education Institute after 9/11 because immigrants were seen as deficits. After 9/11, our students were afraid to come to school because strangers were yelling terrible things at them. People who were knowledgeable, they were college graduates, were actually saying to me, you know, Diane, the problem with this country is immigrants. And I was so taken aback because here I'm an immigrant and they're actually saying things like that to me. And I realized there was so much misinformation out there. People had stereotypes about immigrants. And I said, you know what, we have to do something about this. And here's this little organization, Malta, Massachusetts, going to change the world, right? And everybody started laughing. You can't do that, Diane. But we started very small. So I think what we want to do is we're trying to educate the public, not only through webinars, but we go to community organizations, we go to conferences, sometimes we're on TV, sometimes we're on the radio. We even wrote a book called Immigrant Struggles, Immigrant Gifts.
And you did.
Yeah. So there are many ways to get that out. So you want to change the image. So the image is not only, it's the economics, that immigrants are having a positive impact on the economy of the country, that they positively impact not only for themselves but for you. They're creating jobs, they're starting businesses, they're consumers. It's that creative energy that I've always seen my whole life from my parents, from their friends. I see traditional breads. You realize he's one of our winners of our Entrepreneur Award. So those are the things that I see that I would like everyone to see. And then there's what I see at the school, when I walk around the school. On any given day, you're going to see people from 60 plus different countries. And you know what? I walk into the classes, I talk to the students, and you know what? Every mother worries about the same things, about her children, about are they doing well in school. It doesn't matter the color of the skin, doesn't matter their religion, doesn't matter the clothes she's wearing. Every father worries about the same thing. I mean, those outside appearances were irrelevant. Underneath, we really are the same. There really is a family of man. And I think that's what this is showing, this project is showing. So there's more than just that they're happy. It's that there's more that brings us together than tears us apart. And I'm on my soapbox.
I actually connected a lot with that as I was looking through the images and looking at the imprint, how people have multiple places that migrated to, and members of the same family that were born in different countries, so how we're much more a global society and more connected than we realize, right? And also that immigration or migration, it's not just happening here in the US, but it's happening.
And I want, because people are beginning to, quote unquote, white people, they somehow feel alienated right now. You're seeing that, we're seeing Trump in the White House, and it's those alienated people that put him there. And somehow we have to make them understand that they should not feel alienated. I think that's what we have to try to do. And education is one of the ways to do that, and bringing people together.
I know we had a question here, but I wanted to go back to the reports you put out are so informative and educational and such good data too, that we were thinking about addressing the myths around the immigrant community or addressing the narratives. Those are some really good tools to have, and a lot of your reports are available online for downloading.
What's your website?
What is
Your website?
www.ilctr.org. You have that www, right? Yeah, that's our website. Of course, I didn't bring any cards, Karen.
I think we had behind you, and then did you have a question?
Do you have cards?
I passed them all out yesterday.
Okay.
Mark, I wanted to ask if the Bhutani family that you highlighted that were asked to leave, was it because they were Jewish?
This is
You said
Bhutan.
it was a Jewish family.
No, I was referred to them by the Jewish Family Services in Springfield.
They do refugee resettlement work. So that's
Yes.
Bhutan is mainly Buddhist as a religion.
There's a statement that they have that is part of their text as to why they. So they were resettled by the United Nations High Commission.
I mean, they're not Jewish,
There's a
so the
large
power
refugee
discrimination.
There's a large refugee camp in Nepal of people who've been kicked out of Bhutan. Yeah, there's a lot of discrimination.
That was 1965, I believe. And they were resettled. They were resettled all over the world. And pardon?
Here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got several families in Lynn about 5 years ago. It's about 50 to 100 families.
And the lady that you saw, who was also from Bhutan, who was more Tibetan, they do not recognize dual citizenship. So she has chosen not to become a citizen of the U.S. because she would lose her Bhutan citizenship, and she has family there. So most countries now have a dual citizenship policy, I believe. At one point they were not. Denmark at one time would not allow a Danish citizen to have two passports.
Well, technically, the U.S. is not it.
That's right, the
Yeah.
U.S.
Yeah, the oath you take at the ceremony is to renounce any allegiance to any other nation or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're swearing allegiance to the
Yeah.
United States.
But actually, they do not allow dual citizenship, and you're supposed to say you're an American wherever you go, but you can still carry the passport of the other country where you came from, and the United States will protect you in any country in the world except in your country of origin. So there you will become, like, let's say I'm Palestinian. Well, bad example. Because I can't go to Palestine. I am not protected there. But let's say you're from Oman, you're right.
So are you a U.S. citizen now?
Yes, I am. I've been a citizen for a few years now. But what happens, like from Oman, they will, if you have a problem with any government, with anything, any country, the embassy will interfere, except in Oman, they wouldn't do that. Now, the problem sometimes in Bhutan or in some countries where they wouldn't allow it, and they will make you choose. And there are a few countries who do that. So the United States, when they know, they ignore it, they do not actually enforce it, unless if you become an activist. Then they use it for things like that, like a kind of pressure. But generally, they do not do anything about it. But many foreign countries do not allow it because of the protection, and that sometimes if if they don't have the treaty of exchanging criminals, or if you run away, or for security and things purposes, they want to have a control on that. So you either pick one of the two, and if you pick the United States citizenship, you go there, you go to jail. So let's say in Bhutan, I think Bhutan is the one who did not want them to get the citizenship. I don't think it's the United States. And I don't know.
I don't know, with Trump, under the Trump administration, I would be very nervous about picking any other country but the United States. under his administration.
Don't say this too loud, Fuzzy, because somebody might get the
I wouldn't.
See, the major thing is wherever I go, I put the citizenship as American. I never put Palestinian or Qatari because I have Qatari passport as well, citizenship there. I grew up there. So since I became a citizen, I always write U.S. And many places when I go, it's like, no, I stick to that. But that's it. And I lose benefits sometimes because, like, when I go to the Middle East in many countries, like if I go to Egypt, they treat the Palestinians like their own citizen. So you get cheap tourism. When you go to the pyramids, all these things, it's like 50 cents to get in. When the ticket is like $50 for the American. So, I wouldn't risk it. Yeah, exactly. I pay the $50.
Mark,
Right now,
I just had a quick question.
Excuse me. No, actually, at the school, no, I can only talk from the school's perspective.
Yeah.
We are fully enrolled at the school, and which is with about 450 students, and we have a waiting list at any time between 700 and 900 students. And students are waiting 6 months, 9 months to get into the school, and I hate that. We have 26 classes, morning and afternoon. We have a very intensive program. I insist that you have to come either 12 or 15 hours a week, depending on if you're morning or afternoon students. It's a real commitment.
Who pays for it?
It's a not-for-profit, and 80% is private funding, 20% from the government. We survive on donations, if anybody would like to. www.ctr.org. No, seriously, that is what we survive on. Whether it's $5, $50, $100. We do events during the year, and that's how we pay for our teachers. We have a staff of 33. I personally do not take money out of the school. This is a mission, a passion of mine. I'm fortunate that I can do this. I'm very committed to this.
Diane, is there any other, are you the only model, or is there any other model?
No, there are many, they're basically government funded, but there are many adult learning centers throughout the state. That the state funds, yes. Right. I think mine is the only model that you'll see that's primarily privately funded.
That's what I mean.
Privately funded. And we don't just provide free English classes. We also have the public education piece, and we have our association with George Mason University where we're doing the research. That tends to be somewhat unusual. And I think some of our classes are unique, like our theater class. We have an entrepreneur class for those
now,
who
how do you get more PR? I mean, like someone like Seth Moulton would, stand up and say, this is a model in Massachusetts.
Tell him. No, I'm serious, whatever.
I agree.
Yeah. That's why we get out, the word has to.
Right.
We actually,
we can do it.
We surveyed a couple of local organizations in Peabody, Lynn, that offer ESL classes and some sort of immigrant services as well. So what came across the board is the waiting list and all the programs.
Yes, it's not, the waiting list is not unusual.
Yeah.
The need is tremendous.
Yes.
Oh, no. I mean, just what you said from the backlog.
Yes.
It's incredible.
It is.
Especially now with all the refugees pouring in.
Excuse me?
I say with all the refugees coming in, the need becomes...
And there's a cutback in refugees too, the ones that are here, but you have to understand the Trump administration is cutting back on the number of refugees. And still, with everything that's going on in Washington, that they're trying to do, still, the need is incredible. Which goes to prove immigrants want to learn English. Yes. They really do. No matter what anybody tells you, they want to learn English. They really do understand how important it is.
Fitzroy.
Well, I've been a little silent for a while, so I'll say because I'm one of the recipients of being a part of the association. One thing I can certainly assure you that the people that go through that program comes to employers like me, my gosh, it helps my business tenfold. Because what happens a lot of times, a lot of people have that limited language or limited self-esteem, and go through that program, they come into employers like me, they change the world. And at the same time, give them an opportunity to really be part of something, which is a lot of times people don't get that opportunity. And look at me, I'm a classic example from that. Because when I got to this country almost 35 years ago, I had no idea where America was on the map. Today I have, 350 employees? And all I do is make bread for a living. I make bread with one thing in mind. I'm trying to give the same opportunity that an organization like this gave me, so I can better people's lives. That's really the basic concept. Because it doesn't matter where you're from or what your background is, everybody wants to be a part of something. Everybody wants to feel like they succeeded in their life. And if you think with me for one single second, everybody when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they want to say, wow, I'm going to have a great day. Do you think anybody wakes up saying they want to have a bad day? No. So it's almost the same thing with people that come from different backgrounds. And listen, when Mark, I have to give him a lot of credit. Oh, by the way, this young man, you stand up. Yes, please. This is the most intelligent, incredible writer I know in my life. I mean, wow, what a gifted man.
And you are.
People like him, speaks volume because they not only look at you as a person, but try to bring out the best in you. And
when I wrote about you, a really good subject to write about.
This is what it's made up of. I see what you see in this room here, guys. Man, I wish that America could see a lot more of this, because this is what it's really about. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mark, I have a question for you. I'm just, so many of these stories, you've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure each story is different. I'm just wondering, maybe, I'm not asking for like a big answer here, but I mean, over the years you've been doing this, I mean, is your perspective on your work's, the work's changing, what it means for these people to be a citizen, just your sense of what your project is about, I mean, compared to when you started and compared to, let's say, to now?
Well, if you've never gone to a naturalization ceremony, I advise that everybody should go to a ceremony to appreciate what it really means. This is Jeff Gross, incidentally, and he was at Mira.
I was at Mira.
And I met Jeff when I first started this project, and his the executive director, Eva Alona, and I mean, you were running the show, there's a group of you.
Yeah. The integration.
The integration. So, the question was?
I just wondered if your sense of the project changed or evolved over the course of the work.
I mean, I can identify, and it really dawned on me when I told you about doing that Ellis Island, and realizing that my father, not that he went through Ellis Island, but that he went through that whole routine with his family, and that I'm part of it, and I feel I just have become closer to that feeling and the advocacy of the rights of people coming into this country. And this was not a political project at all. This was 2011. I mean, everything was hunky-dory, kind of.
Relatively.
Not really.
I'm just going to say, I stand on the stage when we do the swearing-in ceremony once a year in Malden, And I think last year, what, we had 200 or 500? How many were? There's one. I know, it was the Malden High School auditorium. The place was filled. And so I was standing up there and I did give welcoming remarks. And then when you see all these people stand up, you know, the flag in one hand and they're swearing allegiance, and you see these big gentlemen with tears streaming down their eyes. Nothing's changed, Jeff. It was no different when I was 8.5 years old and my parents became citizens. It doesn't change. And with all that's going on and all the fear and upheaval and turmoil right now, where immigrants are concerned and what's going on in Washington, it means a lot to them personally when they become citizens and to their families. America still is symbolic of hope and opportunity and freedom. You know what every student always says to me what America means to them? Immigrants, so I don't know maybe if I'm right about this, but I cannot tell you. We've had almost 10,000 students at the Immigrant Learning Center, and I still hear it. They say freedom. Number one is they can't believe the freedom in this country. You can practice any religion you want, and you're not going to be put in a camp or thrown out of the country. You can practice any religion you want. The second, so many of them lived in fear in their own countries. They don't live in fear here. And the third thing is hope. Somehow they're coming to school, they're learning English, and there's hope. We're going to help them find jobs, find a bakery, and there's hope. So I invite you to visit the school if you're ever depressed. Walk into these classes, and you will. Am I right, Cameron? Walk through the classes, and you can feel this energy and the hope that comes out of them. And that hasn't changed in 25 years.
As you mentioned change in 25 years, I was thinking about the current times, and you having done this work for a period of time, and based on your family's experience, do you feel, so when we hear immigration stories, we hear similar stories and experiences and the barriers people need to overcome to acculturate and sort of be included in the larger community. Have you heard that any of the barriers or the challenges are different now than what people experienced 25, 30, 50 years ago maybe?
No. I think, they're still difficult. There are still barriers, maybe a little more now again because of what's going on in Washington. But I know when my parents first came to this country, there were still signs up that said no Jews allowed. My mother did have some I know my parents felt the anti-Semitism against them. They overcame. It wasn't easy, but there are barriers they have to overcome. But there is support too. There are people like you that understand it and support, and we keep trying to educate. But there are barriers, yes, during each time. We did a book, you see it throughout history. There was a time when there were no obstacles to immigrants coming into the country, and suddenly, in the late 1800s, you had the Chinese Exclusion Act. And then early 1924, 1926, you had you talked about it.
Yeah,
what was it? We had the quota system.
Yeah.
What was it
Starting
called?
in 1920, quotas were set up for practically everybody.
What was it called? The Naturalization Act?
National Origins Act.
The National Origin Act. That was set up to keep out Southern and Eastern Europeans. That meant Italians and Jews. And, to keep out the bad people, the inferior people. And so it started. And Asians forget, you don't let any Asians in. They're trying to do that again now with what's going on
with the
China.
recession. They started collecting Mexicans even if they were born in here. Because
so
they
there's
got
always
the jobs. This is like in the 30s. In the 40s, it became the Japanese with the war. It's just
look what during World War II.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there's always been a certain element of that.
We've got time for about probably 2 more comments or questions.
I have one more. Did any of you ever come across someone going through the naturalization process and ceremony to have mixed feelings? Because as you're gaining this whole new part of your identity and the freedom that's associated with being an American and what being an American means and all the ideals behind it, but at the same time a sense of loss for their renouncing part of their nationality or patriotism that they grew up with. Did anybody ever share that experience with you?
I haven't gone through that because I'm not as close to. I would say not that I've experienced that.
I haven't heard that at the school. No, I think once they've decided to become a citizen at the school, they're not sharing those kinds of feelings with me or with the teachers. They pretty much made the decision. But they might have some feelings. There's nothing easy about coming to a new country. Absolutely nothing. And giving up family, friends, your home, everything you know, your culture, your language. Although you bring your food, your culture with you, but it's absolutely nothing easy. But it takes tremendous amount of courage and resilience. I mean, there's something very special about people that do that. We are damn lucky that they come here. Don't ever forget that. Thank you.
Do you mind if I chime on this? Because I am part of this. There is always a part of me that will miss home and what we have to. It's just, there is so much agony and problems and pain and jail and name it that comes with it. So we're excited being Americans. We feel we belong and we feel we want to do good, but you never lose that belong. It's still part of you. We still teach it to our kids because we believe they need to know who they are. If they're, your history is important for your future, and you try to live that balance. Of course, we are, for myself, I'm in a much better place than what I have to come from. But even as bad as it was, it's your childhood, it's your family, it's many things that always stay there. But like she said, you live that balance, you learn it, and you try to make the best out of it. If I get the choice now, I really don't know. Because when I go visit, I don't feel like I'm from there. I don't know if they changed, I changed, we both changed. So it's kind of hard. They call me you're Americanized, okay?
Is there anyone else that's an immigrant in the room? Well, I know her. Yeah, but other than the two of you? Do we have any? You're Indian. How old were you when you?
I was 10 years old.
Diane, my grandparents on both sides came to this country as teenagers alone on a ship.
Think about that. Think about
My grandmother was 16 years old.
Think about it. I mean, it's amazing.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for her.
Yeah. And you were?
We're all immigrants.
That's right. We're children.
How come Trump did it? Putting up a wall.
That's the big question.
It's just a physical wall. We'll have to put doors in it.
And they've been designed.
It's the psychological walls that are much more dangerous.
Oh, yes.
Than I'm more afraid of. People will
I
be
think we've
afraid
got one
to
more
come
here.
in.
I was actually going to just make one comment. When my mother came over from Russia, I grew up not knowing anything. I mean, we had an extended family and nobody would talk about their past.
That's right.
And I don't know whether that's true of the current immigrants, where the children know very little about the life that their parents had.
Depends where they're coming from.
Well, either way, I mean, I
know what you're talking about because I wanted to know about my parents and what they went through, and they would not talk about it.
I wanted to know what they did for work.
Yeah.
I wanted to know where they said we're American. We don't want to talk
I hope that's changed. I think
Technology changes it a lot.
That's right. That's right.
You can see, look, your family, see the soccer scores from your home team. You know, it's a huge
it's a
trend.
good point.
No hiding today.
I don't know if we have time now.
Last one, I think a large piece of that comes from the circumstances that brought the people here. If they came because they wanted an economic advancement, for a better support system for their families and advancement in education and their future, or if they were escaping from persecution and prosecution and murder and things like that.
Yeah. I think last to close it up, I think what it's lacking is a lot of, in my experience, working a lot within immigrant communities from diverse backgrounds, they know a lot more about their personal family history. What is lacking is the history of where they're coming from, academic and formal history, right? Because that's not necessarily part of our curricula in our public school systems. And I think regardless, that's still a part of their cultural heritage and identity, and that impacts individuals' formation and value for their identity. So
I think
those
we
might be
place such value now on all the different cultures that I think the parents do talk about it now because we value each culture so much. So I think it's a little bit of a change now.
Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. This is very Thank you to our grateful speakers. Someone mentioned how could we promote and disseminate this work and information. We also want to thank Salem Access Television who recorded tonight's session, so you can access it through SATV. You can share it and promote it through SATV, and also through the Gables and connecting to each of the individuals' institutions. And don't forget to grab our calendar on your way out to see our upcoming events. Thank you.
And the exhibit is up through March 2nd, so please invite family and friends to our visitor center, and free for anybody to come see.